Before dawn, Safira learned that the crown prince meant to flee. Her spy had followed 2 oil carts through the lower gate. Beneath the jars were plain clothes, a pouch of silver coins, Hamza's traveling robe, and enough water for the short crossing to the outer harbor. The supply boat was never meant to cross the open sea. Beyond the reef waited a broad-bellied merchant ship Sayyid Mora had inspected and cleared, bound for Brunei. Its captain had agreed to carry 2 unnamed warehouse men. From Brunei, another merchant vessel would take them west toward Ayutthaya. Hussein expected anger.
With whom?
With Sayyid Mora.
Then no one stops them.
She stood at the open lattice while Ternate slept below. In Ayutthaya, Hamza would be beyond his father's protection and surrounded by people who could be paid to remember him badly. Company records would prove he had deserted. Safira's preachers would carry one song through every market. The crown prince abandoned his father, his promised bride, and his people to choose sin with a servant. Only after Ternate learned the song would Ayutthaya robber put a knife into both men.
First his name dies, then his body.
She told Hussein to leave the boat untouched. Hamza returned from the old cistern to find Marwa waiting in his chamber without attendants. He barred the door. Rafiq Tuwil stepped from behind the bathing screen, thin and scarred, without his sheriff's badge.
You were dead,
Hamza said. That became useful. Marwa's people found me before Hussein's men returned for the body. Safira knows about your boat. I know what she has been doing inside the palace. He opened an oilcloth packet. Black harbor cord, broken company wax, payment records, and a Dutch letter lay on the table. The false evidence against La Turaja had passed through Safira's broker. Company money had reached Hussein's officers at the East Gate, Harbor Watch, and Armory. The letter promised recognition to a stable successor if Ternate's succession became uncertain.
Cornelius promises nothing, Hamza said. Safira takes the risk. He chooses afterward whether to call her lawful. Marwa laid 2 more records beside them. One was the palace copy of Safira's pregnancy count. The other was an older page, dark at the folds, bearing the mark of the Royal Women's House.
I have followed the alterations for 10 years. This is the first original I could recover.
The official copy placed Salim's conception on the night before Bab Mansour sailed for the 5-month Makian blockade. The original midwife's count began while the Sultan's fleet was still holding the southern channel. Someone had moved the reckoning backward. Hamza read both pages again. The blockade does not prove Hussein fathered him.
No, it proves the official account may be false. The midwife is alive. The flagship log records every day your father was away.
Father will remember. No Sultan forgot the campaign in which a Portuguese shot shattered his steering deck and drove wood through his shoulder. He must say whether he returned in secret, Hamza said. Until then, Salim's birth stays out of every mouth. Move the midwife and the original before sunrise. There is more, Rafiq said. Marwa's hands tightened together.
When you were a child, your medicine changed. Bitter medicine made you complain. Sweet medicine made you sick.
Hamza remembered brass cups, honey, and Sayyid watching from the lesson room wall. Sayyid noticed.
He told Anisa. She told me after Kanuri threatened your servants.
You knew.
I knew someone was altering what reached you. I changed attendants, kitchens, cups, and physicians. The sweetness always returned through another hand.
For how long?
Years.
Hamza touched the place below his ribs where the old pain used to gather. Safira wanted me weak.
She wanted the court to believe weakness was your nature.
And Salim would stand beside me, looking strong. Marwa did not answer. Does father know? Hamza asked.
He knows I distrusted Safira's household. He demanded proof.
And you had patterns.
Yes.
Patterns can warn us. They cannot convict her.
You sound like Jamil.
I paid dearly for the lessons. Hamza separated the evidence. Make copies. Send one to the chief imam and one beyond company reach. Keep Captain Jafar outside the palace. At sunrise, we take the originals to father. And the royal guard? Rafiq asked. They obey the Sultan. Once he removes Hussein, this ends. Rafiq did not look convinced.
Only hours earlier, Hamza had been willing to abandon the throne. Now he sent a runner to the lower harbour with 2 words for Sayyid. Wait for me. At sunrise, Sayyid stood knee-deep beside the lower quay, checking the boat's waterline. Daylight shone through the clear shallows. Needlefish turned above the black reef. Then every fish vanished. The last time the world had gone silent in daylight, Sayyid was 8, spearfishing beside his father. The water remained bright, but the harbour sound dropped away. No gull, no hammer, no rope against wood. The reef opened beneath him like a moray's mouth, and inside it stood Ternate's empty throne. Armoured men crowded one channel toward it. Among them, Sayyid saw Hamza's hand, the cowrie bracelet white against his wrist. The hand reached for the throne. The reef teeth closed. Blood spread through the water, and a black Dutch ship entered on the red current. The sight broke and returned differently. This time, no men entered the mouth. Fishing boats, food barges, oil jars, and clove sacks turned away from the reef. The current drained from it. One by one, its teeth came loose and fell. The throne remained. A porter shouted Sayyid's name. Harbour noise struck him all at once. Fish flashed again beneath the surface. Sayyid climbed out and took the inspector's seal Hamza had once secured for his warehouse work. At the palace gate, Captain Darman examined it, but did not honor it. He sent a runner to Hussein's quarters and opened the gate only after the runner returned. Sayyid found Hamza outside the Sultan's rooms with Marwa and Rafiq. The royal guard would not accept the Sultan's inspector seal until Hussein approved it. If Hussein orders them against you, do not trust your title to stop them. My father is alive. I know. I also saw what happens if your men attack the palace. They die, and the Dutch come in afterward. In the other outcome, no one attacks. The boats and supplies stop. Hussein's guards come out on their own. Hamza could order Latu Raha to force the gates before Safira learned what Marwa possessed. It was the swift choice, and the one every prince in the corridor expected. Instead, he trusted Sayyid. He gave Rafiq new orders. Latu Raha holds the roads, cloves, and local boats. He does not attack even if I am taken. Jafar offers pardon to ordinary guards who leave Hussein. Move the evidence and witnesses outside the walls. He gave Sayyid, who said, The escape is cancelled. Go back to the harbour. Remove my robe and silver. If these gates close, show the black knot. Close the stores to any seal carried by Hussein's soldiers. Sayyid studied him. You are staying. I cannot give Safira the throne and everyone tied to us. Then I stay too. They separated before Safira's second spy saw Sayyid leave the palace alone. The report reached her together with worse news. Hamza's luggage was being removed from the boat. Marwa's women had taken an elderly midwife from her house. Rafiq Tuwil was alive. Safira looked toward the Sultan's chamber. Hamza had surrendered the one life he wanted. Only one threat could make him do that.
Salim.
The old Makian campaign had kept Bab Mansour beyond Ternate for 5 months. Records could be argued over. A live sultan could swear that he had not returned and suspend Salim's claim before the chief imam. Safira turned to Hussein. "The prince is no longer our first problem." She sent Ka Nuri to the tonic room. "Safira, that is too risky," Hussein said. Safira's eyes cut to him. Her voice stayed low, but the anger in it sharpened. "Then we move before risk becomes certainty." Hussein sent for the royal elite guard. Shortly before sunrise, the eastern sky whitened behind Mount Gamalama. The Sultan's chamber smelled of sandalwood, damp cotton, and sweet tonic. Bab Mansour sat at a low table while a servant fastened his cuffs. The brass cup beside him was half empty. Hamza recognized the tray girl from Safira's wing. Her hands shook as the Sultan dismissed her. "I was told you were dead." Rafiq bowed. "That was what the men who attacked me wanted the palace to believe." The Sultan turned to Marwa. "You concealed a royal officer. I kept him alive and brought him into my chamber without summons, because by full daylight Hussein may control who reaches you." The Sultan's expression hardened. Hamza placed the company wax, harbor cord, and payment records on the table.
Safira's broker bought the cord used with the false Latu Raha mark. Company wax lay beneath it. Money from the same channel reached 3 officers under Hussein.
The Sultan examined the papers. "Copies?"
Yes, the originals are secured outside the palace.
"You sent royal evidence beyond my walls?"
I sent evidence beyond Hussein's reach.
Marwa placed the 2 pregnancy records beside the flagship log. The Sultan compared their dates, then pressed 2 fingers against the old scar in his shoulder. "Safira told me Salim began the night before I sailed," he said. "This first count places it 47 days later."
"While your fleet still held Makian."
"I did not leave my flagship. Half the fleet saw the Portuguese break its steering deck. I returned to Ternate 5 months after I sailed." Hussein commanded Safira's household during those months. The Sultan's face hardened. "That does not make him Salim's father."
No, the alteration makes Salim's claim uncertain. None of these suspicions alone convicts them. Together they show one network.
Rafiq laid down an original warehouse order bearing Safira's household mark beside a Dutch broker's seal. The Sultan read the final warehouse order twice, then struck the table with his palm. "Salim's place in the succession is suspended until the chief imam hears the original record and the midwife's oath. He is not to be harmed or called bastard. Bring Safira and Hussein here." No one moved. "Guard!" Armored feet answered from the outer chamber, too many. Hussein entered with 6 royal elite guards. Safira followed in a pale mourning robe, her hair already dressed. Salim stood behind her with his sword at his waist. The Sultan held up the warehouse order. "What is this?"
A trade account, Paduka Sultan.
"With your mark beside company silver."
My family trades clothes.
"Your brothers owned 1 clove shed when you entered this palace. Now they hold 3 warehouses and company advances, no council approved." Safira's face did not change. The Sultan pushed himself to his feet. "You used my seal. You sent false evidence against Latu Raha. You bought my officers."
I protected the interests of your throne.
"You protected your own son." Safira saw the original Women's House record. For the first time, her eyes moved to the tonic cup.
You were not in Ternate when that count began.
"No, you told me a different date. Before noon, you will repeat your claim before God, the midwife, and the chief imam."
The Sultan pointed at Hussein. "Captain Darman, take his sword." Darman did not move. He looked to Hussein. The silence was more treasonous than a drawn blade. Hamza understood. Hussein had chosen their captains, paid their debts, and trained them to hear every royal order through his mouth. "I am your Sultan," Bab Mansour said. Hussein remained armed. "Seal the armory. Arrest Safira and Hussein. No man changes the watch without my order." His hand closed around the table edge. The brass cup tipped. Thick sweetness spread across the polished wood, carrying the smell of honey through the trapped heat. Bab Mansour tried to speak again. His mouth formed the first word, but no sound came. His knees struck the floor. Marwa reached him first. Hamza caught his shoulder before his head hit the stone. The Sultan's breath came through his teeth. Sweat gathered beneath his hairline, and his fingers tightened once around Hamza's sleeve. Then they released. "Physician!" Hamza said. Hussein did not call one. Marwa bent over the spilled tonic. The sweetness caught in her throat. The small brass tray beneath the cup bore Safira's household mark. A narrow line of blood appeared at the Sultan's mouth. Marwa raised her eyes at Safira. Hussein drew his sword. "Seize them!" The guards moved. A spear shaft struck Rafiq across the ribs and drove him down. Two men pulled Marwa away from the Sultan. Hamza rose between his father and Hussein. "Your Sultan ordered his arrest."
"No one outside this chamber heard it."
She stepped around the spilled tonic. The hem of her robe passed through the honey and left a dark trail across the stone.
"The Sultan died while hearing secret accusations brought by his wife, his heir, and a dead sheriff."
"My father was poisoned." "Yes," Safira said, "and you brought him evidence, witnesses, and ambition at sunrise." She turned to the guards. "Until the Sultan's death is investigated, the Crown Prince and Boki Marwa's household are confined. Rafiq Tweel is held as a conspirator. No one leaves the palace without Hussein's order." "You have no authority to order that," Hamza said. Safira looked at the royal seal beside his father's body. "Then let the inquiry decide who does." Hussein crossed to the Sultan's writing desk, opened the carved wooden box beside it, and took out the royal seal. Darman watched him do it, then lowered his gaze. A drum sounded from the eastern courtyard. Another answered from the harbor road. Hussein had begun moving the army before entering the chamber. The palace gates closed. By mid-morning, Hussein held the armory, treasury, records, and harbor gate. Rafiq went to the old guard cells, Marwa and Aisha to the women's wing, Hamza to a barred chamber. In the audience hall, Salim stood beneath the royal awning, while Hussein proclaimed him protector of Ternate until the Sultan's death could be investigated. Not Sultan, not yet. Safira knew that even company guns could not make an uncertain birth lawful in one morning. A messenger from Cornelis arrived before noon. The VOC recognized the temporary authority responsible for protecting trade, public order, and company property. Offshore, a Dutch ship entered the harbor channel. Its anchor struck the harbor with an iron roar. Then the harbor went silent. No fishing boats crossed its path. No bells answered. The black gun ports faced Ternate, while the tide moved around the hull. From his lattice, Hamza saw the Dutch sails beyond the palace roofs. The locked rooms smelled of heated wood and old bedding. No wind entered. Smoke rose from the western road in 3 short columns, then a 4th.
Latu Raha had received the message. He was not marching on the palace. He was closing the island around it. Bab Mansour was buried before sunset. Safira could steal his last order, but not delay the washing, shrouding, prayer, and burial, without turning all Ternate against her. The white cloth passed beneath Hamza's locked lattice on its way to the royal graves. He heard the funeral prayer through the shutters and saw the first dark line of mourners climbing toward the Jiray stones. Hussein's guards would not let him follow his father. Sayyid turned the black knot outward on his keyring. Porters barred the oil, rice, and powder stores. Fishing captains carried the signal along the quay, honor no order bearing only Hussein's authority. Soldiers entered from both ends of the dock. Captain Darman stepped beneath the awning.
Sayyid Murrah, surrender your keys and seal.
Whose order?
The protector of Ternate.
Is Hamza alive?
Give me the keys.
Is he alive? Darman's eyes shifted. Sayyid set the keyring against the oil jar with the black knot facing outward. A guard seized Sayyid's wrists. Another opened the bundle and pulled out plain clothing, silver, and Hamza's traveling robe. Darman studied the robe.
You prepared to steal the crown prince.
No, Sayyid said. He was coming willingly. Then he chose to stay. They tied his hands and led him up the harbor road. Behind them, the boatman lifted the keyring from the jar and disappeared into the warehouse. The empty boat pulled once against its rope. The boatman cut it loose before soldiers could claim it, and the tide carried it north without them. Safira allowed Hamza no visitors. That did not leave him alone. The women's wing was watched, not locked like Hamza's chamber. Aisha exchanged her outer cloth with one of Marwa's attendants and slipped into the service passages beneath a servant's veil. Near dawn, 2 small shells struck the lattice. Hamza opened the shutter by 2 fingers. Aisha stood below in the wet passage, her face hidden beneath a servant's veil. The oil sellers are refusing the east gate. The spice growers have stopped their carts. Grandpa Latu Raha holds the western and northern roads. Rafiq, alive. Mother, planning to kill Safira with a hairpin. That means she is well. Sayyid was taken at the lower harbor. Hamza's hand tightened on the shutter. Where? The warehouse cells. His workers saw. Hamza closed his eyes for one breath. Tell the warehouse men to obey no order bearing only Hussein's mark. Delay the food, powder, and lamp oil. Send them to the wrong gates. They have already closed 3 stores. Sayyid gave the signal before they took him. A brief smile touched Hamza's mouth and was gone. The empty throne, the guard closing around it, the Dutch ship waiting offshore. Each part of Sayyid's warning had already happened. One choice remained. Hamza could call Latu Raha against the gates and finish the bloody outcome, or trust the second thing Sayyid had seen. Tell Rafiq's people to circulate the payment records among the ordinary soldiers. Let them know Hussein was paid in company silver, while they were told they were defending Ternate. And Grandpa Latu Raha? Hold the roads, no attack. He has more men than Hussein. That is why he must not attack. Safira wants blood between Ternateans. Then Cornelis enters as peacekeeper. The chief imam refuses Salim's coronation. Good. She passed a folded strip through the lattice. It bore Cornelis's message, recognizing the temporary authority. Hamza read it. He did not name Salim. He is waiting to see who wins. Aisha produced a reed pen and ink. Hamza wrote against the lattice. Withdraw your recognition and close your warehouses to Hussein. Refuse, and your letter goes to Tidor, Bachan, the English, and every ruler whose cloves pass through your hands. Blame a private clerk while you still can. Aisha read the message. You are offering him escape. I am making Safira more expensive than abandoning her. Before she left, Hamza said, Find Captain Jafar. Any soldier who returns before Salim is proclaimed will be pardoned. Officers who surrender company silver may keep their rank until the inquiry. You would forgive them? I would separate frightened men from traitors. The palace remained in Hussein's hands, but the roads did not. The food did not. The story did not. On the second morning, Hussein tried to break the blockade. He sent armed men toward the lower oil stores and the royal rice warehouses, carrying orders marked with the Sultan's seal. The storekeepers refused them. Latu Raha's men held the roads without advancing. Carts disappeared from the loading yards, and local boatmen pulled away from the quays. Hussein's soldiers could seize the stores only by fighting their way through Ternatans who had raised no weapon against the palace. Hussein ordered them back. They returned with less than 1 day's regular rations and news that the roads beyond the walls no longer obeyed his orders. By the third evening, fresh oil had reached the east gate. The palace still held reserves, but Hussein kept what remained near the armory and his elite guard. At the outer posts, ordinary soldiers had eaten little since the failed attempt to reopen the roads. A list naming officers paid by the company hung beside the gate. No ordinary soldier's name appeared on it. Beyond the bars, Latu Raha's alliance waited without shouting or striking their shields. One guard pushed his spear through the bars. Others followed. Word spread before Hussein could stop it. Men at the other posts began laying down their weapons. They knew Hamza had promised pardons to ordinary soldiers who surrendered. At the west gate, Captain Jafar returned his men to the lawful service of the lawful crown and ordered the old cells opened. Rafiq emerged, carrying the sheriff's staff Hussein had ordered broken. By nightfall, Hussein still commanded his elite guard. The rest of his coup army was falling apart without another battle. Safira watched the waiting alliance from the upper gallery. You said the army supported us. The elite guard does. The palace cannot eat an elite guard. The Dutch ship held position, but no new powder came ashore. Before sunset, Cornelis withdrew recognition from any authority not confirmed through Ternate succession and closed the company warehouses. Safira read the message twice. He is abandoning us.
He is protecting himself, Hussein said. Safira turned toward Salim, who stood near the gallery doors.
You will be proclaimed tomorrow.
The Imam refuses.
Then another Imam will speak.
Safira lowered her voice.
You have the palace.
Salim faced the thousands waiting beyond the walls. The palace no longer seemed enough. The public inquiry opened the next morning. Salim sat below the empty throne in the protector's chair. Hussein's remaining guards lined the pillars as Hamza, Sayyid, Marwa, and Aisha entered under guard. Safira stood before the council. At her signal, Captain Darman placed Hamza's traveling robe, Sayyid's warehouse seal, and the escape silver on the central table.
The Sultan died during a secret meeting arranged by his wife and heir. The Crown Prince planned to abandon Ternate. A dead sheriff entered in disguise. Marwa's father now surrounds the capital. This is a family seizure of the throne.
Safira touched Hamza's traveling robe.
Do you deny preparing to flee after refusing your father's command?
No, Hamza said. A murmur crossed the hall.
He admits desertion.
I'd prepared to flee before I understood what leaving would place in Safira's hands. That was my failure. Safira prepared to rule through company canon. Only one of us opened the gates to foreigners. Silence returned. I remained after learning company money had entered my father's army. I brought him evidence. He ordered Safira arrested and Hussein removed from command.
No one heard such an order.
I did, answered Marwa. Safira smiled without warmth.
A mother and son protecting one another.
A voice carried from the main doors. And a sheriff protecting the Sultan's last command. Rafiq entered with Captain Jafar and 6 sheriff's men. Latu Raha followed, unarmored, with nobles from Ternate and representatives from Tidore. His alliance filled the courtyard beyond. Latu Raha stopped before the empty throne. My house recognizes Hamza, son of Bab Mansur, as the lawful successor of Ternate. Tidore's representatives bowed. Village chiefs and merchants followed. Safira pointed toward the courtyard.
And now Latu Raha's soldiers command the palace.
No allied man enters armed, Hamza said. The roads remain held until Hussein's men stand down. After that, every banner returns home. Latu Raha met his grandson's eyes, then inclined his head. Rafiq placed an original broker's ledger on the table. Company agents favored Safira's household. Royal cargo passed through her family warehouses. False weights hid the missing spice, and the profits reached Hussein's officers.
You stole private accounts.
I recovered royal property. The chief imam opened the ledger. A palace physician presented a wrapped dish. Beneath the honey, I found ground seed known to weaken the limbs and close the throat. The same seed appears in Prince Hamza's old medicine account. Marwa placed the old ledger beside it. Each order passed through Safira's household. The cupbearer was found locked in Safira's linen room. She swears Kaknuri gave her the sealed tonic after sunrise. The old midwife entered with 2 women from Marwa's household. Before the chief imam, she identified her mark on the original count and swore that the palace copy had moved its date. The flagship log placed Bab Mansur at the Makian blockade throughout the true conception window. Before Safira entered his chamber, my father read both records. He swore he had not returned to Ternate. His last lawful order suspended Salim's place in the succession until this evidence could be heard. Marwa and Rafiq witnessed it.
The chief imam closed the record. The suspension stands. Parentage will be judged after every witness has sworn. Hussein's hand moved toward his sword. Hamza addressed the guards. Any soldier who lowers his weapon now will be pardoned. Any officer who surrenders company payment will keep his rank until judgment. Captain Darman removed his sword and placed it on the floor. Another captain followed, then 3 guards near the western pillar. Hussein raised his blade. "Close the doors!" No one moved. "Darman!" Darman stepped away from his sword. "Cowards!" For the first time, Hussein looked smaller than the command sash on his shoulder. Hamza turned to Salim. "Control your birth is one inquiry. What you did with the power of that name is another. Give me your sword and surrender your household. Amina and the other women Safira forced into silence will be heard without your guards outside the door."
He is a prince.
"Then let the record prove it. Until then, he is confined." Salim looked from Hussein's unanswered command to the open courtyard.
Do not move.
"I gave no order for the Sultan's death," Salim said. He unfastened his sword belt and walked toward Hamza with the scabbard across both palms. Hamza reached for it. Safira's face went still. Her gaze dropped to Salim's hands, then returned to Hamza. She stepped forward and closed her hand around Salim's dagger. The blade left the sheath with a small scrape of metal. Sunlight flashed along its edge. Someone drew breath. Safira drove the dagger into Hamza. The impact turned him. He remained standing for one suspended moment, then a terrible heat spread beneath his ribs. For an instant, Hamza did not understand what she had done. The hall broke into sound. Marwa shouted his name. Behind the council line, Sayyid froze. Safira ripped the dagger free and struck again. Blood followed the blade. Hamza's knees gave way. Sayyid ran. He reached Hamza before his head struck the stone and caught him beneath the shoulders, lowering him to the floor as blood spread rapidly across the pale cloth at his side. Safira lifted the dagger again. Captain Darman struck her wrist with the flat of his discarded scabbard. The dagger fell. Rafiq kicked it beneath the council table. Salim stepped away from his mother. "I gave no order for this either." Safira stared at him. "I did all of this for you." Marwa struck her across the face. Safira's head snapped aside. "You poisoned one son to raise another. Do not call that love." Safira slowly looked back at her. Hussein turned toward the eastern passage. Rafiq's men closed it. Captain Jafar and Darman blocked the doors leading into the outer courtyard. Beyond the palace roofs, the Dutch ship remained offshore. No men came, no powder came. Cornelius had already chosen his escape. Hussein lowered his blade. On the floor, Hamza pressed one hand against his side. His fingers slipped in the blood. Sayyid caught his hand and pressed both of his own over the wound as the physician cut through the blood-soaked cloth around it. Marwa dropped beside Hamza. "Stay with me," Sayyid said. Hamza tried to rise. The effort pulled a broken sound from him. Hamza looked past Sayyid to the nearest guards. Arrest her." His voice was low, but the hall carried it. Captain Darman moved first. He stepped between Safira and the throne, while two guards caught her arms and blocked her retreat. Safira looked toward Hussein. He stood without his sword, surrounded by men who no longer waited for his orders. For years, soldiers had lowered their eyes when she passed. Now one turned her away from the throne. The guards obeyed Hamza. The metallic smell of Hamza's blood rose from the warm floor. "Stay awake," Marwa said. Hamza found Sayyid's face.
"The boat."
"I know."
"I meant to come."
"I know." Hamza's fingers found the cowrie bracelet. One uneven shell pressed against Sayyid's wrist. Along the eastern wall, guards removed Safira's family seals and jewels. Their silk remained bright in the sunlight, but no one bowed to them now. Safira was confined in the stone rooms beneath the women's wing pending judgment. Hussein remained under Rafiq's guard. Salim's princely household was dissolved. He was confined away from both parents, while the paternity inquiry and accusations from Amina and other women proceeded. Marwa put those women under her protection. Cornelius withdrew his ship beyond cannon range. 7 days later, Hamza sat propped against cushions beside the open lattice while the chief imam placed the royal seal in his hand. Even sitting upright pulled at the stitches beneath his bandage. Ternate had already chosen.
The Tidore delegation had not left. Their chief envoy waited outside Hamza's chamber. Marwa remained beside the open lattice. "They asked whether your father's understanding with Tidore died with him," she said. Hamza kept the cold seal in his palm. Beyond the harbor, the Dutch ship had withdrawn, but its masts were still visible against the morning sky. What did Latu Raha tell them? That Ternate's new sultan will answer for himself. What did the council do? They believe marriage may turn an old enemy into the one ally the company cannot command. Hamza closed his fingers around the seal. Pain pulled beneath his bandage. Tell Tidore the promise has not been broken. Marwa waited. Nor has it been fulfilled. I will answer after the morning. On the 12th day after the stabbing, Sayyid found Hamza beside the old cistern at dusk. Rainwater clung to the garden leaves, and frogs called beyond the wall. Hamza leaned one hand on the damp stone rim. A loose robe covered the healing wound at his side, though the walk from his chamber had drained the color from his face. "You should not have walked this far. I crossed one garden. You were stabbed. I noticed." Sayyid stopped beside him. The cistern water held the last light, and damp earth darkened the stones where they had planned their escape. "Our ship is gone. Yes, I cannot leave now. I know. Part of me still wants to. So does part of me. What happens to Ayutthaya?"
Sayyid rested his arms on the stone rim. "It stays north." Hamza smiled faintly.
I asked you to leave with me.
You did.
Now I am asking you to stay.
The palace lamps came alive one by one behind the carved screens. Guards moved along the distant gallery, too far away to hear. "I was never following the throne," Sayyid said. He took Hamza's hand below the cistern wall. Hamza's fingers closed around his. For the first time, neither of them listened for approaching footsteps. Far beyond the garden, the sea carried the lights of departing ships. In Batavia, rain struck the shutters of the Governor-General's chamber. Cornelis placed Hamza's accession notice before Jan Pieterzoon Koen. Safira failed. The Tidorean delegation remains in Ternate. Koen's eyes lifted. For the marriage? They have not withdrawn the proposal. Koen folded the paper once, then stopped treating him like a prince. He set the paper beside the map of the Spice Islands. Ternate has chosen its sultan. Now we teach him what that choice costs.